Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me join today, and it's always exciting to talk about British Council science activity. I am currently the global head of science for the British Council. I'm based in the UK, but that is a coordinating role covering both UK partners and also regional and country activities wherever the British Council has science activity, and that for us can be all around the world. So if you're not familiar with the British Council, or if you're not familiar with the fact that it has a science arm, then we'll go through a bit of that as an overview. I've got a few opportunities and examples of things that we have funded in the past or have open now, maybe for a couple more weeks, but there's a real caveat here that we're very much still in a planning phase, and most of our new activities for the next 3 years are kind of works in progress. So Shijin has the full slides that are available here. I'd really encourage you to go ahead and share those, Shijin, with anyone that participates, just so then they have access to all the links that are in them. And I'm very easy to contact. My email address is just jen.bardsley@britishcouncil.org. If you have any questions that come up, I'm always happy to hear from you. So I hope everyone can see the slides. All I can see is the slides, so please put your questions in the chat, and we'll leave some space for discussion at the end. So if you're not familiar with the British Council, many of you may well be. We are the primary international cultural relations organization. We are an arm's length body from the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office. We've been in existence for more than 80 years, working to forge links between people in the UK and other countries. We are in over 100 countries around the world. We have recently closed a few of our offices in some settings where we were possibly less effective than others, but we are still very much present all around the world. And our primary purpose is to build connections, understanding, and trust between people in the UK and other countries through arts and culture, education, and the English language. Our science work is within that education pillar. The other places where you may have come across the British Council is a lot of its support for arts work, anything from local theatre groups to things like the Venice Biennale. And also the English language and exams activities are huge for the British Council. So we deliver around the world a lot of IELTS certification, British educational qualifications like GCSEs and A-levels. A lot of those things would be administered through British Council testing centers. And what do we do in science? Well, as part of that education pillar, we have a higher education and science portfolio, and the science activity sits within that portfolio. Our primary goals are inclusivity, excellence, and trust. We really are looking to support early to mid-career researchers through our activities to maybe be able to exchange work, to collaborate together, but we are very much sort of a front door to wider British science. I think one of the important things to remember about the British Council is that we are primarily a cultural relations organization. We are not a science funder. So some of the funders that you will hear from in the second talk after this one, I would presume that's going to cover charitable funders, public sector funders like UKRI. Their primary goal is to fund research activity. Our primary goal is to extend cultural relations activities. So the work that we do in science is never going to be the multi-million-pound grants, the huge programmatic activities for research. It's more around early stage collaboration, pilot activities, exchange programs, workshops, and sharing to build and extend and make sustainable collaborations between UK researchers and the rest of the world. We really see that work in international collaboration as vital for science and vital for the UK, but also increasingly vital for early career researchers and people seeking to build their careers in science and research. So we do a lot of different things within that, and within some of these opportunities, within some of these is where you find opportunities to work with us as an early career researcher. The science diplomacy work tends to be quite high level, system reform, institutional activities, links between the UK ministries and ministries around the world in science and research. But we do a lot of links building, capacity building, career strengthening, and we have a primary focus in our own science pillar to really work towards strengthening people's careers over key career attrition points. So, where it's known that it's very easy to fall off a science career. So maybe at the end of a PhD or the beginning of a master's program or the beginning of a postdoc or somewhere else where you have to really make a leap from one opportunity to the next. And we also have a key emphasis on underrepresented groups and to strengthen diversity in the scientific workforce, whether that's around gender or around ethnic representation or disability. That's a primary goal for us as well. And we do also pilot some and share some learning around STEM education, although it's probably a little bit less relevant to the group that is here today. You may have come across some of our past activity, and what the British Council had a primary focus on for several years, actually for the entire 7 years of its life, was the UK Newton Fund. Some of you may have come across this. It existed for about 7 years. It ran in 16 countries, and it was based primarily on bilateral arrangements between UK funders. There were 7 of us that supported it, and the partners in the 16 countries where it ran. We had several opportunities for early career researchers within here. And actually, now that the Newton Fund is sort of coming to an end, it's really moving over into legacy. We're waiting to see what may or may not take its place in the coming year. But a lot of the structures and opportunities that we built around the Newton Fund will be things that we are able to reuse or repurpose. So there were travel grants in here. There were workshops that would bring together cohorts of early career researchers. And actually, the workshops that we ran are one of the first things that we repurposed, and the recent opportunities that are available for Researcher Links workshops are now around these challenge grant structures where it's usually a virtual 3 to 5 day workshop bringing a group of early career researchers together from the UK and a partner country. And there's a challenge prize or challenge activity as part of that that's a project for groups of postdocs that can continue for up to a year after the project has ended. We're currently in the middle of the first cycle of those that were a climate challenge program run around the COP26 activities. And if you follow that link, it'll take you to a list of the awarded workshops so you can see the kind of structures that we funded in the past. And there's actually an open call now around public health for links between the UK and Germany. We're going to get into at the end of this talk difference between the work around climate challenge and the work that we're doing with Germany, because for us, there's a split between what we consider official development assistance funding and what is not official development assistance funding. So we'll go through that in a minute. We also had some larger scientific support activities, usually in the low 6 figures, that were more about collaboration development and were a slightly more senior level, although they did certainly support and employ several postdoctoral and early career researchers as part of them. These were really, again, because they were Newton Fund, they were part of official development assistance and really designed to tackle local development challenges in science. So there was a strong emphasis on activities in the sciences that were going to support development-related impacts. And again, we'll get into that in a minute. So that's still going to be a key focus of some of our work. Aside from that, we have some other opportunities. Some of these are live or ongoing now. Some of them are Newton related, and we'll need to decide and discover what we're going to do to repurpose those in the future. There were Newton activities that supported PhD scholarships and short-term placements for exchange. We have run for several years now. It's just coming to the end of phase 3, the UKIARI program, that is the UK-India Education and Research Initiative. UKIARI is again waiting for sort of approval to go on into a phase 4. So we don't, again, know what opportunities will come up, but I would strongly encourage you to look into UKIARI. If you're coming from India or South Asia, that had a lot of placement, travel, collaboration opportunities available in it. Critically, UKIARI is not official development assistance funding, which I think we'll get into again may be really significant for people that are working in cybersecurity in particular, maybe of a lot of relevance to this school. The Women in STEM scholarships and fellowships opportunities, we started those last year with a first cohort of Women in STEM scholarships. For this year, they all started this fall, well, in autumn 2021. It's about 117 women that have come from a variety of countries to do one-year master's study courses here in the UK. For the cohort that is open now, so these are actually open over spring this year for a start in September. We've added an early career fellowship to that. It's designed to be a very early stage academic placement fellowship. If you're familiar with the UK knowledge transfer partnerships, this is immediately post PhD. You could be waiting for oral examination. You could have just finished your viva. It's not really designed to be a postdoc job as much as it's designed to be an early career placement to help you develop a new collaboration, finalize publications from your PhD, and really move on to the next stage of your career. So we're really excited to see how that plays out. That's only our first cohort. We're going to be able to place up to 20 of those in 5 different universities around the UK. And we have an ongoing program with Israel that's, again, a big source of exchange and support for postdoctoral researchers. It has a focus on health and aging and regenerative medicine, but particularly now has moved into something focused on clean growth. And so there may be opportunities available there as well. And again, that can change direction as we move forward. And finally, I think what might be of interest to some of you is that we also run the Your Access network. So Your Access is not a necessarily EU opportunity, although there is a huge Horizon 2020 and now Horizon Europe support for it. It is a pan-European network designed to facilitate researcher mobility into 40 countries with 32 national partners. We are what they refer to as the bridgehead organization for the United Kingdom, and the link on that Your Access link will take you to the Your Access United Kingdom page. There's a lot of practical information about what it means to travel to the UK, hands-on, or to actually, I think, to be fair, to leave it. There's a lot of information about training opportunities, development opportunities, job fairs, recruitment, international partnering. So it's an interesting place to look if you're either here in the UK looking to move, or whether you're from a different country looking to relocate for a while to the UK. And there's a lot of helpful information and use on that as well. So I keep referring to official development assistance, and I don't know if you will have come across this or not. Some of you certainly will have. It had been a tremendous focus for the science budget over recent years here in the UK, but is also quite core to the British Council activity. So if you're not familiar with it, and pardon me if you are, official development assistance is the formal name for what we call aid spending, or what people frequently in the press would protest as aid spending. It's managed by several different government departments, one of which for us is the Foreign Office, another one is the Business, Enterprise and Innovation Department, and a variety of departments will have official development assistance spending. It's actually officially recorded by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, of which the UK is a member, and also one of the net donor countries that manages it. It's core to what we did in Newton Fund and Global Challenges Research Fund, if you'd come across that. But also the issue for us is that significantly we are supported by the Foreign Office as an arm's length body, and a core part of our funding is official development assistance related, which means that that funding, if it comes from our core spend, if it's ODA, classified as ODA, it's quite closely monitored and frequently audited by several different bodies here in the UK to make sure that it is compatible with the OECD definition of ODA. So the reason that becomes quite important is that at the level at which we're handing out research funding or providing support for research activity, if it is an ODA eligible or ODA based activity, or if the funding stream is coming from that classification, we have to be really careful about how we are able to make sure that we have an eligibility audit trail. So for us, we insist that both our staff and the academic reviewers, for whatever the grant call is, will assess the development relevance of the proposed work. We ask for a pathway to impact of a time frame over 3 to 15 years. That's quite flexible depending on what the work actually is. But where it's, I think, becomes quite critical is you can't really have something that may show benefit a really long way down, because it's quite basic activity. It needs to have some kind of direct link to what will be a plausible development related outcome. It needs to show a net benefit to an aid recipient country. There's a list called the DAC list, and we would be able to support you with determining that. The benefits cannot stay here in the UK primarily or within net donor countries overall, and it needs to have a positive impact on economic development and social welfare. Again, that's quite broad. It seems like that would eliminate anything related to either computer-based research or cyber research or even anything around medicine. But actually, it's more about whether or not it reduces barriers, whether it makes structures easier, institutions easier, whether it is supporting the benefits to, kind of get down to all levels of society. But I think probably for this school, there's a couple of aspects of it that are really important. Most of what we do can be construed as ODA eligible if you have the right approach. But there are two key exclusions here, and this has been coming up more and more in things that we have had applications for, and I think is of particular interest to your school. One of them is that we cannot use ODA funding for any work that has a law enforcement, security, or military application, or could be seen to promote the security interests of the donor. And we have to be quite careful about anything that can be perceived as dual-use technologies. So for activities that we've supported around cybersecurity in the past, there's a lot of flexibility that is ODA eligible around things like the Internet of Things, promoting connectivity, promoting networks and structures that support developments of, say, smart power grids or integrating equipment together. But things that are specifically around digital forensics, things that are going to be specifically most useful for law enforcement or could potentially be used by the security services. We've had some issues with proposals that included facial recognition, or there was one about monitoring with kind of wearable monitors, almost like ankle tags. Again, very close to a security application. So depending on whether or not it would be beneficial to law enforcement, we have to be quite careful about how we use ODA spending in that context, which is actually something to discuss after this talk, because it would be good to hear from you what implications that has for broader cybersecurity work. And the other big exclusion is that ODA cannot be used to support anything that's profit-driven or activities with primarily commercial objectives. So there is another one where it would be difficult to construe ODA spending for something that maybe was working toward faster financial trading or supporting things that were not going to then benefit the wider society or context that it was found in. And the overall assessment of eligibility is made at the application review stage. For us, if a grant call is within our ODA funding streams, if it's not ODA eligible, we can't support it, no matter how meritorious the project may be. And one of the quickest ways to assess whether something's going to have an ODA relevance is to look at the Sustainable Development Goals. You may have these referred to as the SDGs or the global goals. They're quite broad. In fact, number 17, my personal favorite, is just partnerships for the goals. So if you can't fit your work into one of these 17 things, it's hard to know where it would fit. These are also easily seen as benefiting everyone in the world. They're not just development questions. Even here in the UK or anywhere else, we very much need good health and well-being. We all need quality education. We all need sustainable cities. So these are very much, and the reason they're now being referred to as the global goals, these are activities and deliverables that will benefit everyone equally. So I'm going to stop there. Again, I'm quite happy to share these slides more broadly, but I'm going to hide the screen for now so I can get back to seeing the conversation.
Okay, thanks, Jane, for the very, very informative presentation with a lot of information I didn't know even myself. So, and let me have a quick look. Great. I'm just to see if I'm seeing the right area. So I'm looking at the facilitator question received. Is that, I believe, is the right place I should look at, right? Because I don't see any question coming yet. So the audience, so because I can't see how many of them are there, and please, if you have any questions, particularly about any clarification of the points have been covered, please send in the chat or the question, and so I can see it. And as Jin said, so the slides have been shared with me, so I will send that to the Windows School organizer so that it can be further shared with all of you, so that you don't need to actually remember all of these, because it's very informative with a lot of links and a lot of, I believe, a lot of new terms for you as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And but one thing I think, Jen, I think you probably can also point some of the participants to, is that I think you have local websites of different
We
countries.
do.
Yeah. How
We
many of
do.
those local websites you have? Because I only know you have a Chinese one. Do you have?
There should be a website or a web presence for BritishCouncil.org for every office we have, which at current trading is probably about 105. So if you look on the BritishCouncil.org website, you can usually, there'll be an area where you can select from a giant drop-down list the British Council country that you're interested in. There are also usually regional, but there'll be a contact point for basically anywhere where you are. And if there isn't, then there's certainly the main British Council contact points will send you to the UK team, and we will get you to the relevant contact from there.
So basically, on those localized website or web pages, normally you have this more tailored or specific program for
Yes.
that particular country or region.
Yes.
Right?
So these are just the programs and activities that we coordinate centrally. But there are usually locally based, locally funded, partner supported activities that are run from the country offices themselves. So the only one of the only one of those that I have on the current set of slides is the BIRAX program that's run out of British Council Israel. But yes, there's several in China. There's a large research consortium based in Japan called Renke, that is a British Council based organization. So there's 3 research consortia run through the China team. So there's activity all around the world. And those are really just the opportunities that we would be making available from the central team. So I think what I would strongly encourage you to do is kind of watch the space as the British Council comes up with its new 3-year strategy over the coming few months, where we will have a better picture of what opportunities will be available over the next 3 years, and that will be made available both on our central.org website and through the country offices themselves.
Okay. So just one question. I think I suddenly thought of myself. I believe these British Council, most of the events and funding opportunities are for bi-directional exchange, right? It's about people going out and also people coming in, right?
Yes.
So this means if it's coming in, that is best about more normally the local language and advertise locally so that people can come to the UK. But if it's the UK going out to that country, so that'll be advertised both sides, right?
Yeah, it should be. Again, it's only when it's specifically a mobility scheme, so it depends on what it's doing. If it's so the Women in STEM scholarships or fellowships are specifically to bring people to the UK. They're not sending UK people abroad. Some schemes are designed deliberately the other direction. So it kind of varies based on the scheme itself. But one of the things we're looking into as well is how we can provide some language support in particular for people that are going either direction. So there's certainly within the schools team, which is again a different part of that education pillar, there's a Mandarin language support that we're looking to find ways whether or not UK researchers looking to move or to relocate to China can find some language support before they go, because that can often be a huge barrier for people either direction. And for the Women in STEM fellowships and scholarships, there's a summer school and some summer support from the universities that are hosting. That's a bit of English language support for people that are coming here so they can participate fully in the master's degrees. So they will be advertised in multiple locations when they're available.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking this question about if someone, for instance, doing PhD in the UK, but from Malaysia, for instance, and very interested in more specific on Malaysia. Is that sufficient to monitor the Malaysia page, or he or she has to, or they have to monitor both sides to have a full picture of?
They should be quite closely integrated. So an opportunity that comes up on the Malaysia page would likely also be on the main British Council page if it's the kind of thing that would work between the UK and Malaysia, because that's likely to be, if it's working in Malaysia through a UK funder to support, or through a Malaysian funder to support activity in Malaysia, it's most likely to be advertised on the Malaysia page. If it's looking to move people between the UK and Malaysia, or it's supported in part by British Council core support, then it's likely to be advertised in both places.
Okay. But in any case, it sounds like to be safer, it's better to monitor both, I guess. Because particularly the other side is probably in the local language, which probably sometimes
it will be in the local language. They'll be supported in local language, but it's probably worth keeping an eye on both places. But that said, they're not big websites, so it shouldn't be difficult to monitor it.
Because I noticed that the China website seems to has a single domain name as well. Is that separate, or is that just sort of virtual area of the main websites?
It should be britishcouncil.cn, I think.
Yes, correct. So that look like separate. So, but I guess it's just an area of the main website, right?
There will be the main website that's .org is registered here as a UK domain. So the drop-down list from that will link you to the .cn website. There's a .il, there's a .my.
So these are normally separate websites registered locally within that legislation.
I think they probably are registered. If they have that suffix, they'll be registered locally.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, so I think, as I said, I believe, because this is probably relatively new area for our participants, so and they will need time to digest. So I will share the slides with them, and so participants, so if you have any question after you receive the slides and think about it, and if you have any questions or queries, I guess because Jane said at the beginning that you are happy to be approached, and
absolutely, we're always here.
But of course, we make sure that they check the website first rather than always just write to you. And so please do study the slides, particularly study the websites and the different links, and so because a lot of things would have been answered already on the website and in FAQ if they are, and if you still have particular things you want to discuss, and definitely we'll be able to help. Okay, I think we are reaching the end of this session. So I think thank you again, and Jen, this is very informative session. And
thanks for having me. I hope the rest of it goes well.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.